There is a very specific reason that the Divine Mother Kali's lips are black, tongue is red, and teeth are white when she's sticking out her tongue. You see, the black lips represent tamas, darkness, materiality, torpor, sluggishness, lack of motion, movement, activity. This plane, this material plane, is called Bu Loka. Loka is plane, Bu, or sometimes Bog. It's kind of a dark plane, very material, very solid. The Divine Mother appears as she does, black, not because she's saying, accept tamas, but you look to her mouth, she's saying there is darkness, there is blackness, this is material plane. This is what you see. This is where you are. But through that emerges rajas, tongue, action, red, fire, heat, the dynamic force that causes you to act, that causes you to do things, that motivates you. It's where desire is as well. And it's not bad in its essence, not even as dark as tamas, not even as dark as this world without action. It is that force within us that drives us, moves us forward, brings us to do something. Whatever our motivations are, we choose, but it is the dynamic force emerging from tamas, and then sattva, teeth, white teeth. And rajas, it must be controlled, it must be harnessed, it must be directed through proper motivation originally, and through proper effort to kind of contain this dynamic force that is rajas, that we cultivate as well. Our actions, our efforts, our understanding itself, the activity of our very understanding and thinking must be filtered through and controlled by sattva. Sattva, purity, clarity, light, right action, kindness, compassion, clearness of purpose, clearness of destination of thought. The vast majority of humanity don't manifest just sattva, rajas, or tamas. The sattva is just goodness, clarity, cleanness, and virtue, however you understand it. Controlling the dynamic, the dynamic and active force that is rajas, symbolized in the Divine Mother's mouth by the white teeth, sattva. You see, there's something about consciousness that most people don't realize. Consciousness, it can't be tainted. The same consciousness I felt as a baby, and the same consciousness I felt as many years ago, early 20s, late teens, where I didn't act or I didn't do anything that was just to help somebody else. I was only motivated by, if I was going to gain something, then I would help somebody or talk to somebody or act in this world. If it was going to gain some kind of pleasure, some kind of company, some kind of sex, whether it be drug or alcohol or just ego itself, I didn't act. Even when I started to emerge from tamas, from darkness, from complete depression and sadness and lack of purpose, when I was emerging, when rajas was more taking hold, then my actions were motivated by desire and selfishness. It was only in later years did I come to understand the value of spiritual practices, spiritual understanding, and the value of my fellow man. And that's when sattva in me began to direct my activity mentally and in this world. Sattva. And it didn't happen by resisting desire. That's the thing. In Indian philosophical understanding, there's not the negative morality placed around different desires, or something being sinful or being incorrect, trying to force your sexuality down, or trying to force your desires down because it's sinful. It's either sin or it's good. There's not that same flavor in Indian philosophy and almost any school of philosophy in Indian thought. There is an understanding that if you resist desire, if you try to force it down, especially if you have to do it on other people, but even yourself, if you try to resist, it's almost like you're trying to pull against a bull. Desire is that bull. That's just the harder you pull, the more you try to resist it, the more you're going to lose to it. Instead of just forcing down desire, instead of thinking of it as sinful or something like that, simply do spiritual practices, work towards the Divine Mother, work towards God, meditate, do puja, offerings to a statue. That statue becomes very much alive a lot of the time to us, and I can attest that I have seen the Divine Mother move in front of me in the form of the bronze statue I have. After many spiritual practices, mantra recitation, offerings, ringing of bells, there's something about the statues that will eventually begin to move. But doing all these spiritual activities, the lesser desires, the lesser happinesses, the lesser pleasures became more and more not interesting to me, not fascinating, not motivating for me. I began to have more sattvic desires, the desires to have friends for friends' sake, to be in relationships for relationships' sake and for the other person's sake, to help other people through my relationship with them, and to instead desire higher learning and understanding rather than just entertainment. But the main point I'm trying to make is that by working towards God, doing spiritual practices, and to me, the Divine Mother Kali is God. But you can worship God or work towards God in whatever form you see fit. But the more I participated in these spiritual activities and doing them, they started to change my motivation. They started to change my rajas and contain it within sattva, so that sattva was still movement, was still activity, but it was directed in a new spiritual way. And I became a better person as a result. You see, but that consciousness, when I was a baby, when I was a lesser person, or a lesser sattvic person, and I'm not just completely sattva either, and the consciousness I have now, which is more sattva, that consciousness was the same. That purusha, that innate soul, that eternal soul behind everything, that filters itself through consciousness, and consciousness filters itself like light. Soul, purusha, through consciousness, consciousness through ego, and into self. But while that consciousness felt the same, while I still felt, and still just inhabiting this consciousness, it was still the same light, it was still the same rays. There wasn't some other form of consciousness that I was. It's just that the window, or the hole in the wall, whatever you want to call it, the shutters were just letting in not quite as much of myself, not quite as much of Purusha, soul, allowing that soul behind everything. There wasn't as much filtering through, same consciousness, but the shutters became more and more opened through spiritual practice, activity, understanding, and learning. And I started to feel my consciousness more and more. And same consciousness, but more and more intense. And just like light shining on filth, because how we organize our mind, our motivations, our thoughts within ourselves, however we organize all that, is what is being illuminated by Purusha, by that light, by the light of consciousness. Now, it would be crazy to say, if light hits filth, garbage, dirt, dung, that you'd have to clean the light. You don't have to clean the light. It's never sullied by what it illuminates. It just becomes a different experience for our minds, which is that which is illuminated. We organize our minds, material, parvati, nature. It's all within us. And how we organize it is what is illuminated. But the light's still the same light. We can let in more of that light or less of that light, but it's the same light. You don't have to clean the light. You don't have to clean the consciousness. You don't have to clean the soul. It's just what is illuminated is what has changed, and the intensity of the light, how much of it's coming in. Now, in my mental self, my inner world, there's not as much filth, garbage to be illuminated. There's still a lot, but not nearly as much as there was. And living in that mindset, living in that state of mental decay, even if it's illuminated by consciousness, it's almost like that's your world. You don't know any other world. You don't know anything else but Tamath. That is your world. But once you start to realize that within yourself, that isn't happy, that isn't satisfying, that isn't contentment, and you start to clean everything up within yourself, cleaning up what is illuminated, consciousness becomes so much sweeter, because what is illuminated is so much more pleasant to be in, so much more of a pleasant room to be in. So what is illuminated becomes a more satisfying, contented life, while the consciousness and the Purusha, the consciousness and soul behind it, same, but it's a more pleasant experience. The Divine Mother Kali, she teaches us just by how she displays herself to us. And her being black skin, and red tongue, white teeth, she's teaching us just by how she displays herself to us. And she's teaching us about this world, and about the external world, and about the internal world, and how to relegate these areas, how to move things around, how to understand them, so that we can see the truth behind all of this, behind our inner world and external world. The Divine Mother is beautiful, and understanding this, you might be able to, within yourself and in your external world, make a more pleasant habitation that leads to a more content life. And what is illuminated within you, at first, it might all be garbage and dung, the more that you let consciousness become crisp. But once you start reorganizing everything, then eventually contentment. And that's what the Divine Mother has to teach us. Thank you very much for watching. Like this video, leave a comment in the comment section below. That helps out the channel. Feel free to share this wherever you like. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.